I think this next game could be one of the better games of the week. And, I've been on record before pre-2018, absolutely. And then as I said, I referenced a fight that I got, or an argument that I got in with my roommate about the existence of bear weather, and more importantly, in my case, and what has gotten me to believe in this concept, the existence of dolphin weather. The Miami Dolphins are a better team in the sun, in the heat. They just, this, or as I should say, maybe it's not about the heat. Maybe it's about the cold slowing them down, and the cold being a difficulty for a guy like Tua Tagovailoa, who came up playing in Hawaii in the SEC, never really had to experience playing in any kind of cold weather growing up, and then certainly didn't have to as a guy playing in Miami for half of his games every single season. And with that, you've got the Miami Dolphins going to Lambeau Field in late November for a night game to face this smash mouth, well-coached Packers team with a rejuvenated defense. I think the Dolphins, all that to say, the Dolphins have had one of the hottest teams in football, but I've got to go with the Packers and their mojo, voodoo that they're going to have going on Thursday night. What do you guys think?
Yeah, I mean, that was always the thing, is the weather. You could circle this game on the calendar at the beginning of the season and say, oh, that's Miami headed to Green Bay for a cold weather game. No shot Miami wins. But I will say I've seen some positive things from Miami since Tua came back. I think their run game is still right there. It can be a very good run game when it clicks. I mean, they have a stable of talented running backs there. And that's one thing that's really kind of hurt the Packers this year. We kind of saw it with the Bears and the Packers. Swift kind of got off in space. I think you can get the Dolphins skill players out in space to make plays. And yeah, it's going to be cold, but I think when you keep in mind how good this Dolphins run offense can be, compare that to the mistakes that Jordan Love is going to make as the spawn of Brett Favre. I think Jordan Love is going to keep the game wide open, and I think if he does that, I think Miami could sneak up on him. But man, I think the MVP of the Green Bay offense all season has been Josh Jacobs.
Roll Tide.
He's so good, and I think he could be the reason they win a couple of games in the playoffs this year. I think I said that at the beginning of the year. But yeah, Jordan Love, he makes too many mistakes. He almost allowed San Francisco to get back in that game. If you guys saw, he made a couple of turnover-worthy plays. This Dolphins defense, the secondary is still a really talented secondary that can turn the ball over. Mm-hmm. Jair Alexander, if you remember the Bears game, he had kind of a knee issue, a stability issue in his knee. If he isn't available or 100% with these guys, Jalen Waddle just got off. Tua's a football player. At the end of the day, I don't think the cold weather game is going to bother him as much as we'd like to think. And man, if Waddle, Tyreek Hill, all these running backs, if they show up, I don't know if the Packers are ready. I don't know if they have the guys ready for them.
Yeah. Right. I mean,
here's
okay. Go ahead, Mike.
Just wanted to say, I mean, here's what it comes down to at this point. Like where Miami has been at this point in the year for the past 3-4 years. I mean, you've had Skylar Thompson, Snoop Huntley, and not Matt Moore. What was the guy's name? Name. Tim Boyle. Like it's Tim Boyle. Like I mean, Tua hasn't been, able to play in these games just because of health this late in the year. I think with how they're running the ball, how well their offensive line is playing for him at this point. That was a big question mark going into this year. Is how was that offensive line going to hold up, and was he going to be able to stay healthy and be on the field to not be sacked? Um, the over under on this game is 47. Packers are a 3-point favorite. Playing at home. Um, I I feel like the Dolphins defense has stepped up a lot in these past weeks. Especially playing against Drake May, only giving up 15 points to the Patriots. A lot of them in garbage time as well. The offense is clicking on all cylinders. You mentioned Jalen Waddle will likely be back, but we've seen a guy like Jonnu Smith has become a go-to guy on this offense and really, really has looked good. Devon Achane had 2 touchdowns last week. It'll be interesting to see, what the conditions really are going to be like in Green Bay. How is the footing going to be? How are they going to be able to get passes off? Is he going to be able to get a burst? Getting a handoff in the backfield and then going upfield. But I think at this point, Jordan Love has kind of looked very mortal. I think there are some questions that are floating around Green Bay about how that offense is playing. One person who has not looked bad on that offense is Josh Jacobs. And that is one place I think that the Dolphins are going to be able to take advantage of on the ground. I do like him to go over over in this game, especially with how I think the weather conditions will be. But the Dolphins getting 3 points, I can't not bet on them. And the over-under at 47, I don't know if you want to touch it. I don't know how many points are going to be swerved because I really don't know what the weather is going to be like. You can assume it's going to be pretty intense. But if they're able to move the ball against them, and that defense has been playing really well in terms of getting pressure on quarterbacks and the secondary, as you mentioned, Christian, has been playing really well. Yeah, I like the Dolphins to cover 3 here. But we'll see. I think this is a turning point in the Green Bay Packers season. It really is of how everything is going to go and how the connection between Jordan Love and those receivers is going to be. My guy I mentioned as every week, like Tucker Kraft, didn't do anything last week. He wasn't able to get the ball to him. The playmakers were kind of out of sync. A couple deep balls of Christian Watson was what they were relying on. We'll see. And Josh Jacobs. That's going to be. It's going to be. I think it will come down to the run game and who's going to come up bigger. The offensive line for the Packers, the offensive line for the Dolphins, in terms of who's going to be able to move the ball down the field, and that's going to be Devon Achane or Josh Jacobs. And I think if you're going to put your money on it, Devon Achane.
Yeah. Christian, I wanted to say, and Mike, you set it up beautifully as well. I think the main difference in this game is the reason that my heart sank on the first day of free agency when I saw that one of my favorite Alabama players of all time, because Bryce Young is my favorite, but one of my favorite players of all time, and a guy that was in my class at Alabama, and a guy that has carved out a beautiful role for himself despite being drafted with the Bears draft pick selection in 2019. Josh Jacobs is going to be the difference maker in this game in the cold against this team to alleviate Jordan Love of responsibility, which I think is going to be a key for Matt LaFleur as these games become more and more important. I've talked about how no matter how well the Packers play, if you're putting a late game situation or important game in the hands of a guy who doesn't really treat the ball as particularly important, I should say, and sometimes that pays off. Sometimes those risks end up paying off, and against teams like the Bears, it worked. But against teams that are really going to be tests for them as you get into the Dolphins are a true contender. You're going to have to take care of the ball. You're going to have to. You don't want to give that offense any more opportunities than they need. I can't believe I'm giving the Packers advice right now, but you know what? Rely on your playmaker that you drafted or that you signed, I should say. At the time, I thought he was going to be with Aaron Jones, and I was like, oh my God, I can't believe what they're going to do. They're still doing it without Aaron Jones. it's insane to see how good Matt LaFleur has made Josh Jacobs and vice versa, how well they've been able to complement each other with his play calling and the plays made by Josh Jacobs. And similarly, on the other side, what Mike McDaniel and Tua Tagovailoa clearly mean to each other in terms of making that offense go and making that offense work. Tua Tagovailoa is I need to see it in the cold before another Alabama guy that I love, but I really need to see him play well in the cold and against this Packers team where we saw him. Was it 2 years ago on Christmas where he really had some questionable decisions? I thought he might have been concussed in that game, and they still sent him out there. So there's some other questions there for sure.
All I need is the sleight of hand. That's all I need. The sleight of hand of Tua.
Yeah.
Well, and it'll be the last thing you guys want to even hear, but shout out Jordan Love, 163 yards and 2 touchdowns last week against the 49ers. He played efficient. They moved the ball down the field. Obviously, they leaned on Josh Jacobs a lot in that game, but he still was able to throw 2 touchdowns. I mean, the guy has looked very good back there. Their offensive line has looked well, especially against the pass rush of the 49ers from last week. I mean, no wonder it's a 3-point spread, but
no, I think the X factor, I mean, the Packers center has been really bad. Elgin Jenkins has had to slide over to center this year. And yeah, if the key is going to be stopping Josh Jacobs, I think Calais Campbell and Seiler are the guys to do that. If they shut down the run game, Jordan Love he made a lot of mistakes. I mean, he's going to turn the ball over. So he turns the ball over this week. I think Miami's gonna sneak up on him.
Yeah, I mean, certainly with 2 teams that are going to be contenders, anything can happen in those games.